In this video, I'm going to talk about Flapjack and the most important things in it. You know, like Kinacles' backstory. Did he find the Candy Island? Is it even real? We will also talk about the main character's secrets and the show as a whole from beginning to end. So, the show follows the adventures of a young boy named Flapjack and his mentor, Captain Kinacles, along with their talking whale named Bubbie. Together, they face numerous challenges to locate this legendary place called the Candied Island. Legend has it that it's a place made entirely of candy and nothing else, but you know, we're not even sure if it's a real place or not. But who is this Kinacles guy? Well, Kinacles, the self-proclaimed greatest pirate in the world, is quite the character in the misadventures of Flapjack. This old, washed-up sailor loves spinning outrageous tales of his daring adventures, and he never fails to get Flapjack caught up in his high seas shenanigans. From battling sea monsters to hunting for hidden treasures, Kinacles' stories are always larger than life. I mean, it's hard to resist the charm of his exaggerated tales and the excitement they bring to Flapjack's life. Despite his apparent charms, though, he does have a past full of sorrow and misery. The earliest memory that left a scar on him was his school friend's birthday party, where his friend gave the last invitation to the teacher, leaving Kinacles uninvited. This is probably why he never attended school again and stayed illiterate. In the episode Kinacles is a Filthy Rat, we learn a little bit about his parents. You see, there's this magical genie involved, and it's said that they were turned into seagulls.
So anyway, I still haven't found that magical genie who turned you two into birds, Mom and Dad. I'm working on it.
But hold on, there's a twist. Kinacles was a bit when this all went down, so yeah, we're not entirely sure if it's true or just some wild story. Now, in the episode Diamonds in the Stuff, we catch a glimpse of Kinacles' dad before he got turned into a seagull.
I have to go into the sewers now, Kinacles. It's important. If I don't come back, the Dookie and the rats got me. Okay, Pappy.
So, it seems like he was off doing his own thing when the transformation happened. Also, Kinacles lost one of his hands to a food processor accident when he was a teenager. He then carved himself a new hand out of wood, which is what he uses in the show. When he was a little boy, his mother told him about how every year on low tides day, people would hang their boots in the water, and the next day, they'd find a present in them. He did exactly that, but the next day, his boot was empty. He found out that bad kids didn't get any presents. Instead, they were sacked by the mermen as punishment. He found himself working on a ship one day, but given that he was just a small boy, the pirates bullied him and left him stranded on floating ice. However, through trial and error, he eventually got his captain's license and was overjoyed to sail his first ship, which unfortunately just so happened to sink. But just like many of his stories, this story was all a lie too, and what really happened was that he failed to get the license, hence he never became an official captain.
Here's your failing papers.
Thanks. I'm gonna party!
His excuse was that the captain hated him, but as it turns out, despite him not knowing anything except dropping the anchor, the captain wanted to help him learn. Not knowing how to react, he threw a fit of rage and ended up sinking the ship while he made his escape on a boat. Sometime later, he invited his grandfather to his 8th birthday party, who claims that he would be there alive or dead as a ghost. But sadly, no one came to his birthday party, which is why he thinks his grandpa is dead and ghosts aren't real. But as it turns out, his grandpa was alive all along. He claims that the party was only 1 week ago and it was at his place, but Kinacles himself didn't show up. This further tells us how he either tells fake stories or fabricates them to get what he wants. During his teenage years, he was wearing fish as sandals until he got his eyes on these really fancy boots and decided to steal them. He would continue to wear these boots for the remainder of his life. One time he was sailing with a guy named Mike who cursed the ocean, and the gods decided to punish him with a storm and then summoned jellyfish to sting him. The jellyfish's sting was so strong that it glued Mike's mouth and vocal cords together, making him mute forever. Now, as for love life, Kinacles' first love was a girl who smelled like fish guts and aftershave, and as lovely as she sounds, he pushed her off the docks and a big squid ate her. His love life didn't go so well after that, as this one other time he was smooching the most beautiful woman in the harbor Barber, but when he opened his eyes, he was smooching himself, and the woman had left him because he was too ugly for her, which caused the whole crowd to laugh at him. In the episode Bubbie's Tummy Ache, Kinacles reveals that before he met Flapjack and Bubbie, he was acquainted by another boy named Tuppence and a whale. He sent a boy down the whale's stomach to fetch his lost watch, but that was the last time he ever saw Tuppence. Then this other time, he tried to lend his umbrella to a woman in a thunderstorm, but got struck by lightning immediately after. He tried being nice again by complimenting some witches, but ended up getting electrocuted by them. All of this shaped him into the carefree jerk that he's become now. But deep down, he's just a wounded child who had a rough childhood. And this is why he reminds me of Dr. Hines from Phineas and Ferb, because he's kind of that similar character. So this one time, Flapjack and Bubbie were out at sea and stumbled upon a drowning Kinacles. They saved him from the scary sea, and from that moment on, Kinacles started sharing his tales of adventure with them. When Kinacles mentioned Candied Island, Flapjack's excitement sparked, and he became determined to be an adventurer just like Kinacles. Since then, Flapjack has been by Kinacles' side, ready for any adventure that comes their way. Despite his unconventional appearance, Kinacles does consider himself a human, albeit with some unique features. One notable characteristic is his whiskers, which give his head a blue appearance. Ironically, the whiskers around his mouth are actually fake, which he's quite embarrassed about. Kinacles also bears scars and various tattoos, which are revealed when he goes shirtless. He is quite a sight to behold with his unique set of prosthetic wooden limbs. I mean, from wooden legs and hands to a rear end made of nothing but a wooden plank on a belt, this guy is truly one of a kind. But in the episode Gone Wishin', he gets the opportunity to transform back into his human form with all of his original limbs. How? By making a wish from a mermaid's heart, of course. Talk about a magical makeover. But it only happens for a few seconds before he turns back into his other form that we see throughout the show. So, around 5 to 11 years before the series began, something pretty magical happened. Bubbie was just swimming around in the sea when she stumbled upon a bundle of seaweed. In that bundle was a cute little baby. Bubbie instantly fell in love with the tiny tot and declared him her little angel. Now here's where it gets interesting. As fate would have it, a man in a boat happened to pass by selling flapjacks. And you know what? Baby Flapjack really liked the name.
Flapjack.
In fact, it was his first word. So Bubbie then decided to name him Flapjack from then on. From that moment, Flapjack became a part of Bubbie's family, and she took him to Stormalong Harbor and raised him as her own. So what is this Stormalong Harbor? Well, in the wacky world of Flapjack, Stormalong Harbor is a dock above the sea where almost all of Flapjack's adventures take place. Its layout is a bit all over the place. I mean, sometimes it looks like a decent-sized harbor with buildings getting bigger as you go towards the center. But then, in other episodes, when they show it from above, it's like, wait, is this harbor bigger than a bathtub? It's one of those things that keep you scratching your head and wondering just how big this place really is. On the quirky streets of Stormalong Harbor, you're gonna find the town divided into two sections, the lower and the upper. Down in the lower section, you've got the bustling docks, quirky shops, and the folks who might not be swimming in riches. It's run by the one and only Dock Hag, who's got her own unique way of keeping things in order. Now let's head on up to the upper section, where the well-to-do residents of Stormalong reside. This here's the land of the wealthy, where lavish houses and manicured gardens can be found. You'll even spot some vegetation growing land attached to this area, adding a touch of nature to the posh neighborhood. It's a whole different vibe up there, with fancy estates and a sense of exclusivity. The harbor is surrounded by some pretty dangerous areas like the Sea of Teeth and the West. So yeah, it's not for the faint of heart. Only the toughest sailors and adventurers ever dare to venture into those waters. Alright, so we already know that Bubbie is like the closest thing to Flapjack's mother. But what you may not know is that inside Bubbie's gigantic whale body, there's a whole house for Flapjack and Captain Kinacles. Can you believe it? They even have their own bathroom in there. I mean, talk about convenience, right? Whenever Flapjack and Kinacles are chilling in Bubbie's mouth, she's careful not to wiggle her tongue and ruin their cozy setup. However, she can still talk by only moving her uvula. Life sure gets wacky when you're living inside of a talking whale's belly. And boy, Bubbie is one sassy whale, let me just tell you. She's got a real protective streak when it comes to Flapjack's safety. She cannot stand Kinacles' bad influence on him, always getting them into trouble. Bubbie just wants Flapjack to stay his sweet angelic self. But you know what? Despite Kinacles' obnoxious attitude, Bubbie still cares about him like family. It's like a dysfunctional but lovable trio, causing chaos and looking out for each other at the same time. She has often expressed her wish to fly like the birds, which sort of came true in the episode I See You, when she's given a ride in an air balloon. But aside from that, she's a pretty normal and lovable character who absolutely adds a lot of depth to the show. One interesting thing about Bubbie is that she used to be obsessed with pies. When she was younger, she partook in a pie-eating contest and won. As she was celebrating, a woman named Ruth was baking pies for pirates and was about to choose a husband for her. However, given Bubbie's obsession with pies, she broke into Ruth's house and swallowed everything, including her. Ever since, Ruth was living inside Bubbie making pie as she had nothing else to do. Luckily for her, Flapjack rescues her, and Ruth, despite being really old, is still the hot thing among the sailors, just like in old times. The most prominent location in the entire harbor is the Candy Barrel, which is like the heart of Stormalong Harbor. It's this barrel-shaped candy bar owned by Peppermint Larry and his candy wife. And let me just tell you, they take their candy very seriously. They serve it up to sailors and pirates like it's the finest liquor, pouring it out of taps and filling up beer mugs with sweet treats. It's the go-to spot for Flapjack and Captain Kinacles whenever they're craving a mug full of candy goodness. The only problem is, they always seem to run out right before it's time to pay up. But hey, that's just part of the adventure, right? Another interesting character in the show is Dr. Barber, who is a local doctor, surgeon, and barber in Stormalong Harbor. He runs both a barber shop and a doctor's office, which are next door to each other. Alright, now let me tell you about Dr. Barber, the town's most peculiar doctor. This guy has an unusual fascination with surgery and his job as a doctor. Some might even say he's a bit twisted, as he takes pleasure in messing up his patients just for fun. Yeah, it's pretty messed up, but you know, I think it's mostly because he lacks proper principles and ethics. I mean, he's got some really strange mannerisms too, making him quite the oddball. Sometimes he unintentionally ends up doing more harm than good, which, yeah, that's never a good thing for a doctor. But hey, on a good day, he actually seems to enjoy taking care of the people of Stormalong. It's like he has this genuine desire to help, even if his methods are a bit questionable. However, despite his medical skills, Doc can come across as lonely and isolated. He lives with his mother, and he doesn't seem to have many friends, or even much of a social life. It's kind of sad, really. Now, here's a rather strange tidbit about Dr. Barber. In the episode Fish Heads, it's revealed that he has a peculiar habit of feeding all the hair he sweeps up to a mysterious creature that's hidden in his basement. But here's the thing that really makes you scratch your head. How on earth does this shop have a basement when it's located right on the docks above the sea? You know, it's just one of those puzzling questions that leaves you wondering about the secrets lurking beneath the surface of Stormalong Harbor. This one time, Dr. Barber was feeling down because nobody needed his surgical skills anymore. Flapjack, being the resourceful kid he is, made him a friend out of candy. They hit it off right away, and Dr. Barber decided to leave Stormalong with his new candy buddy, you know, since he thought he wasn't needed. But just as they were about to leave, the townspeople showed up, desperate for surgery. Dr. Barber refused, saying he's leaving with Candy Colleague, and well, yeah, that didn't sit well with the townsfolk. They turned against Candy Colleague and wanted him gone. They tried to hide with Peppermint Larry, but when Larry thought Candy Colleague had eyes for his wife, he handed him over to the angry mob. In the end, Candy Colleague hid with Flapjack in a closet, and well, it's strongly hinted that he ended up getting eaten. In the episode Tee Tummy Tums, Flapjack meets this dude who's rocking a bag on his head. Turns out, he and his family make a living selling combs. Flapjack tags along and helps him sell those combs in Stormalong Harbor, but is put off by his baggy disguise. They swing by Dr. Barber, who's willing to buy some combs, but only if the bag comes off. Guess what? Underneath that bag, the dude is the most handsome man in the world, but he covers up because he wants people to appreciate his combs, not his pretty face. People start hassling him to show off his looks, but he's like, nah, not happening. So he dips from Stormalong with his family. In the episode Love Bugs, Flapjack meets this girl named Sally who sells seashells. As soon as he sees her, he gets those lovey-dovey hearts popping above his head. Kinacles freaks out, claiming that being in love is the worst thing for a sailor. They head to the candy barrel, where Larry tastes those heart candies and goes nuts for them, giving them loads of candy in return. Kinacles sees a golden opportunity and forces Flapjack to churn out more of those love hearts. Larry is all in, selling those heart candies like crazy. They even invite Sally to the barrel, promising free food, but it's just a ploy to keep Flapjack making hearts. Sally is grossed out by the idea of Flapjack being in love with her, but she decides to lend a hand anyway. Then Dr. Barber shows up and inspects the candy, revealing that they're actually blood gnats. Turns out, Flapjack got infected with the bugs when he checked out one of Sally's seashells. And now the whole city is infested. But Sally comes up with a plan to take the Gnat Queen to Blood Island, leading the bugs away from Stormalong Harbor. In the end, Flapjack notices a love heart floating above Kinacles, and even though he brushes it off, it's revealed that he's in love with Larry's candy wife. Now, some fans have this crazy theory that the whole show is actually inside Flapjack's head. Like, he's this troubled kid dealing with his own issues, and everything in the show is like a dream or something. They say that Captain Kinacles and Bubbie are all just figments of Flapjack's imagination, representing different sides of his personality. And you know what? When you think about it, it kinda makes sense. I mean, the whole town of Stormalong Harbor doesn't even make sense. From one angle, it looks big and bustling, but from above, it's like this super tiny place. Oh, and don't even get me started on the weird characters and illogical locations. It's like Flapjack's imagination is running wild. I mean, I don't know, man. It's a theory, but I think this might be the closest thing that we have to the truth. Now, given their unhealthy obsession with candy, Flapjack and Kinacles' ultimate goal is to locate the Candied Island where they can have as much of it as they want. For instance, in the episode Cammy Island, Kinacles and Flapjack find themselves stranded on an island, thinking it's the famous Candied Island. But guess what? It's not what they expected. Instead, they come face to face with a fearsome creature named Cammy. While Kinacles tries to escape by building rafts that kept getting eaten or destroyed, Flapjack actually forms an unlikely friendship with Cammy and helps her find some food. Kinacles' raft building skills could definitely use some work, to say the least. But luckily, Cammy takes pity on them and provides them with a new boat to sail back to Stormalong. Sometime later, Kinacles discovers a treasure map hidden inside Bubbie's mouth and is convinced that this is going to lead them to the legendary Candied Island. Before they can embark on their sweet adventure, Flapjack needs a haircut to see the map clearly. Little did they know, the mischievous Barber swipes the map, setting off a wild chase to reclaim it. Through wacky antics and hilarious mishaps, Flapjack eventually retrieves the map, only to reveal that the real treasure isn't candy, but the priceless bond of friendship. In the episode How the West Was Fun, it is Flapjack's birthday, so to celebrate it, Captain Kinacles and Flapjack set off on a crazy adventure of finding Candied Island. Despite the crazy stuff happening around them, like burning ships, weird monsters, and strange hermits, Flapjack remains oblivious to all the danger. It's like he's living in his own little world. Whenever they mention going west, all sorts of spooky creatures appear, making it even more intense. After a while, Bubbie and Kinacles give up and decide to head back home, declaring that there's nothing here. But Flapjack is determined to keep going west. He even builds a raft to continue the journey. But things get even crazier when they start hallucinating after drinking seawater. Thank goodness Bubbie swoops in to save the day and bring them back to safety. Up till now, we honestly weren't sure if Candied Island was real or made up. But the nail in the coffin is in the episode Over the Moon. Flapjack, Bubbie, and Kinacles are on the run from 8-armed Willie when Bubbie crashes, sending Flapjack and Kinacles flying straight into the moon. Kinacles, always the smooth talker, convinces the moon that he's the king and persuades it to take them to Candied Island. But things take a chaotic turn as the moon goes on a rampage, causing all sorts of destruction in its quest for Candied Island. But wait, Poseidon enters the scene and sets things straight, telling the moon that there's no king and it should only listen to him. The moon gets all kinds of angry, blaming Kinacles for the trouble they're in, and refuses to take them anywhere. Talk about a lunar tantrum! Meanwhile, Flapjack and Kinacles finally spot Candied Island for the first time in the distance, but Flapjack's worried about leaving the moon and missing out on reuniting with Bubbie. And that's when Kinacles makes a daring decision. He decides to make the duo jump toward Candied Island. However, the moon's gravitational pull tries to hold Kinacles back. It's a really sticky situation for our group, as they try to make their way to the place they've sought for so long. In the end, Flapjack manages to get a taste of Candied Island, like literally with his saliva, before being pulled back to the moon. Talk about a bittersweet moment. Even though they never managed to step foot on the island, hey, at least now they know that it is a real place. Oh, and Flapjack is the only person to have ever tasted the Candied Island. In the final episode of the show, Flapjack and Kinacles' candy obsession leads to their fish transformation and a 2-week underwater adventure. After treatment from the mermen, they regain their limbs and return to the harbor in disguise for more candy. However, their true identity is revealed, and instead of turning into fish, they become live-action versions of themselves. They're once again banned from Stormalong and sail off with Bubbie in search of a new home. The series concludes with a humorous scene of the trio sailing off into the sunset, with Bubbie having a human face from eating too much candy. So, hey, have you guys ever wondered if the misadventures of Flapjack and Adventure Time could secretly be connected? I mean, think about it. What if Stormalong Harbor, the town in Flapjack, was actually built from the wreckage of ships after the Mushroom War that was mentioned in Adventure Time? I mean, it's just a theory, but guys, it's pretty mind-blowing if you ask me. And get this, Flapjack's quest to reach Candied Island might actually be a hidden link to Candy Kingdom in Adventure Time. Could it be that Peppermint Larry, the candy enthusiast, has been to the Candy Kingdom and used Princess Bubblegum as his inspiration for creating his candy wife? Yeah, it's a wild thought, but it kinda makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, how else would you explain her coming to life? Oh, and it's not just Adventure Time. The show also has connections with other shows, such as We Bare Bears. In the Mechanical Genie Island, Flapjack and Kinacles stumble upon a magical genie that grants wishes. But here's the twist. In We Bare Bears, in the episode Charlie's Halloween Thing 2, Charlie shares a story about encountering a similar mechanical genie named Zohar. And guess what? Just like in Flapjack, this genie also granted wishes with some serious consequences. I mean, how awesome is that? It's like a hidden link between the two shows, giving us fans something to geek out about. But anyways, in the end, The Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack is one of the best shows out there that I think you've gotta watch. In terms of art style and animation, it stands out with its distinctive visual aesthetic. The show features a hand-drawn art style reminiscent of old-school cartoons, but with vibrant and exaggerated character designs. The environments are richly detailed, ranging from the quaint and colorful Stormalong Harbor to the dark and mysterious depths of the sea. Additionally, most of the elements of the show are in 2D style, but the show also incorporates 3D elements here and there, which definitely add a touch of aesthetic to the show. Another standout aspect of this show is its ability to blend humor with darker and more mature themes. Now, while primarily aimed at a younger audience, The Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack often incorporates elements of horror and suspense, creating a tonal balance that appeals to viewers of all ages. With its blend of humor, adventure, and underlying depth, this show has garnered a dedicated fan base over the years and remains a beloved gem in the world of animated television. Well guys, this was the entire timeline of The Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack so far. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel and click that bell icon for similar content.